In case you've never seen any of his videos before, Dr. Mike Diamonds is a board-certified physician, a former natty bodybuilder, and one of the latest fitness influencers to officially jump onto the walking for fat loss bandwagon. In fact, he recently published yet another video talking about how walking is so effective for burning belly fat, only this time he revealed his own personal walking secret for burning belly fat on demand. It's actually more of a series of claims that comprise his walking secret. And in this video, we're going to tackle each of these claims one by one and determine whether they're actually legit. So let's talk about his very first claim that he makes at the start of his video. And that is that walking burns belly fat because, and primarily due to the fact that it lowers insulin and lowers cortisol, aka your stress hormone. So let's dive a little deeply into this without going too technical or too into the medical weeds, so to speak. We've talked about this multiple times on this channel across multiple videos, and that walking actually boosts insulin sensitivity. It actually allows your body to become more responsive to insulin, especially after meals, because what happens? All of the carbohydrates, namely glucose, that gets ejected from your meal into your bloodstream, thanks to the action of insulin released by your pancreas, is able to be immediately sucked back into the cells where it's used for essential energy synthesis, aka ATP, for example. So glucose is being directly leveraged for quick bursts of energy, and insulin resistance is subsequently lowered, especially if we time our walking around mealtime, which is incidentally something that Dr. Mike Diamonds doesn't talk too much about in his video, and we'll talk about what he recommends instead of walking after meals. But he says that walking lowers insulin. Walking over the long term is going to indirectly lead to a lower insulin concentration in your bloodstream, but it doesn't directly lower insulin. But we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and we'll say that walking consistently, daily walking, is associated with a lower insulin concentration. How about cortisol? We know this for a fact. Walking definitely lowers your stress hormones, right? For one thing, it increases your mental clarity. It's also an example of low intensity steady state cardio, or LISS. So it's not going to spike your heart rate. It's going to keep you generally around zone 1 cardio range. As a result of it not spiking your heart rate, it's not going to spike your cortisol. And over the long term, similar to its effect on insulin, it's going to lower your cortisol levels. When I actually did my blood tests back in June, I did a test with Function Health, which tests over 160 biomarkers, and among those biomarkers were both insulin and cortisol. And as someone who's been walking over 20,000 steps for almost 1,000 days in a row now, walking has definitely contributed to normal levels of both insulin and cortisol in my blood. So walking doesn't directly lower insulin, and walking doesn't directly lead to a decrease in cortisol, but it does increase your mental clarity. It doesn't spike your heart rate, so it certainly doesn't raise your cortisol like other high intensity forms of cardio. Walking, however, consistently and on a long-term basis is going to eventually lead to you losing belly fat and keeping it off, but it's not due to a hormonal influence that walking has. So partially agree with this first claim. Walking does burn belly fat, but it's not primarily because it lowers insulin or lowers cortisol. So that is going to be the first claim. Let's just say partially agree with his first claim. The second claim he makes is about fasted walking, namely fasted morning walking. And he says that fasted morning walking burns way more belly fat than any other form of walking, primarily walking after eating a meal. Why is that? Because fasted morning walking is going to be conducted when your body is already in a lower glucose state. So there's a lower concentration of glucose in your bloodstream, and as a result of that, lowered insulin. So your body, instead of leveraging carbs and burning carbs for energy, is instead going to tap into those long-term energy sources, aka fat. It's going to tap into body fat, burn that for energy. So your body is essentially going to be primed to burn more fat when you're walking in a fasted state. When you haven't eaten anything in the morning, you're likely to burn more fat. And some studies do point to the benefits of fasted walking, but the specific study that Dr. Mike Diamond references in order to back his fasted morning walking claim also points to those very same participants engaging in aerobic exercise like bicycling and swimming, where their VO2 max actually rose up to 50 to 70%. So these guys, or these participants, were specifically doing a combination of fasted morning walks and other forms of high intensity cardio. So the combination of the two led to lower levels of belly fat, overall body fat, and also visceral fat in these participants. So the study that he uses to back his claim doesn't necessarily rely just on fasted morning walking, so probably not the best evidence that he provides to back his claim. But in terms of whether or not fasted morning walking burns more belly fat than walking in general, a singular isolated activity such as fasted morning walk is not going to be enough by itself to burn off belly fat, because you also have to take into consideration what you do for the rest of the day. If you go for a walk, even a 60-minute walk, without eating breakfast, then you eat breakfast, and you stay sedentary for most of the day, ultimately you're going to be not doing or making very much progress against that belly fat. At the same time, if you have two people who are in a calorie deficit, one goes for a fasted morning walk, another person, like me for example, eats breakfast first before going for his morning walk, knocking out his 8,000, 10,000 steps at the start of the day, and then by the end of the day they consume the exact same number of calories, same macros. Both of them are going to be equally effective at losing belly fat. So what does that mean? Going for a fasted morning walk doesn't necessarily put you in a better position in terms of burning belly fat over someone who doesn't. So there's no unfair advantage, or there's no extra advantage from doing fasted morning walks. It's not going to allow you to burn more belly fat. Over the long term, being in a calorie deficit while consistently walking every single day, that is going to make the biggest difference. So that is going to be the second claim. I'm going to say I disagree that fasted morning walking allows you to burn more belly fat. Now let's talk about the next claim that he makes. And let me make sure we are on track in terms of his various claims that he makes in his video. Yes, walking pace. Dr. Mike Diamond talks about how people should be better off lowering the pace of their walking. Frankly, they're walking way too fast, and slow walking actually allows you to burn more belly fat over the long term. And I actually agree with this claim. Probably one of the first times in this video, right, that I agree 100% with what he's saying. Walking slowly is more beneficial for long-term belly fat burn as opposed to walking fast. What did we just say? Walking is an example of low intensity steady state cardio, right? It's going to keep you around zone 1 cardio. It's not going to spike your heart rate. Thus, it's not going to spike your cortisol. It's going to be something that's sustainable, achievable, and accessible to everyone. And it's something that you can not only do every single day, very easily carry out everywhere, indoors, outdoors, while working, while not working. And ultimately, you need this type of sustainable exercise for a process that frankly takes nearly forever to complete, aka getting rid of belly fat. Belly fat is usually that body fat, the subcutaneous fat, that is the last to go away. This is basically a dead end here on this park trail, so I'm gonna double back and take the bridge. But walking slowly is gonna allow you to more easily and more consistently carry it out on a daily basis. If you're likely walking fast, and by fast walking I mean that you're basically breaking into a jog, you're almost going into a mini sprint, basically running, you're going from zone 1 cardio to zone 2 cardio, you can't carry a basic conversation anymore like I am doing during this walk and talk, then suddenly you may be more than likely to increase your heart rate, spike your cortisol. This is what Dr. Mike Diamond is claiming. He's saying that fast walking raises your cortisol, and over the long term, a heightened or chronically elevated cortisol level is not going to be conducive to losing more belly fat. Instead, keep your cortisol levels low by walking slowly. Again, I think Dr. Mike Diamonds is overly fixated on some of the hormonal benefits of daily walking. Daily walking allows you to burn more belly fat, not because it lowers your cortisol or lowers insulin or has beneficial hormonal benefits. It's because it's easy and accessible, and it's sustainable, and as I always tell you guys on this channel, scalable over time. So you can slowly but surely increase your steps over time on a week by week basis, or what I recommend every single month, adding anywhere from an extra 500 to 1,000 steps. So that ability to easily scale up over time, and again, it's accessible to everyone of all ages, that is what allows you to burn belly fat, because you need to stay in a calorie deficit long enough for that belly fat to finally go away and stay off for good. So you have to be doing an exercise that you can sustain throughout the course of your calorie deficit. Eventually, as you get deeper and deeper into your calorie deficit, you're gonna get tired out by all of that high intensity cardio, all that running and sprinting. It's frankly not sustainable. But daily walking, you sure as hell can expect it to be sustainable throughout the entirety of your calorie deficit. So that's the third claim he makes. The fourth claim he makes is exactly what I'm doing right now, walking outside. Namely, he claims that walking outside in sunlight is better, more effective at burning belly fat than walking indoors or walking on a treadmill. This is a claim that I'm going to actually push back on, because he's essentially making the same mistake he did earlier on in the video, where he says that one type of walking is superior to other types of walking. Earlier on, he said that fasted morning walking is better than walking after eating breakfast. And I'm gonna push back in the same exact way. If you like to do fasted morning walking and if it works for you, go for it. But there is very little evidence that suggests that going for a fasted morning walk is more effective at burning belly fat. Similarly, walking in sunlight is, yes, very beneficial, but it's not for belly fat burn. It's more so because you're outside in nature, you feel more connected to your environment, you feel better, right? It increases in mental clarity. You're outside of an office environment. You're also getting in more vitamin D3, which is good overall for not only increasing your calcium absorption into your bones, but it's also good because it directly increases insulin sensitivity as well. So that's another anti-diabetic effect of getting extra vitamin D3 by walking outside in the sunlight. He also talks about how walking outside in sunlight affects the circadian rhythm in a positive manner. Basically, if you're supporting a normal circadian rhythm, that's also going to overall support your total hormonal balance across your body. So that is also in turn going to lower insulin, lower cortisol, and once again lead to belly fat eventually going away and disappearing, staying off for good. Walking in sunlight walking indoors, walking on a treadmill. All three of these are, once again, just different ways of walking. And walking overall, long term and consistently, is what's going to keep that belly fat off. Walking, because of added hormonal influence or hormonal benefits, is not going to contribute to you losing more belly fat, right? So you could take all of the outdoor walks you want, but you're probably going to lose belly fat at the same exact rate as someone like me, for example, who lives maybe in a colder country where he only gets maybe 9 months or he gets 3 months essentially of sunlight, of good weather, and the rest of the 9 months of the year he has to deal with stormy, cold ass weather, cloudy skies, basically depressing, gloomy environment for the majority of the year, which is probably the case for a lot of folks, unfortunately, around the world. So what do those people do? Are they just doomed with belly fat forever? Nope. They can do the same thing that others who live in more tropical climates are doing, right? They can still walk, but they walk indoors. They use walking pads or treadmills indoors. At the gym, instead of doing high intensity cardio, they warm up by going on a walk on the treadmill. Walking in general is going to keep that belly fat off. It's going to melt that belly fat first and then keep it off for good, because you're getting into the habit. You're becoming more consistent at walking. And walking is sustainable, accessible to all of us, and it's going to allow you to keep at that calorie deficit for as long as possible, for as long as it is needed to finally burn off that belly fat. You see, belly fat goes away very, very slowly. It's the last type of body fat to go away. And the funny thing is, you could be burning off fat off your arms, off your face, off your legs, but the last place for the body fat to essentially leave your body is going to be around your center of gravity, essentially your lower abdomen. And I've seen this in my own experience. The first time when I dieted all the way down to 9.7% body fat, it happened nearly overnight. I was, for about like 5.5 months, almost 6 months, just losing fat everywhere else except for my belly. And then that belly fat was the last one to go, and it happened basically overnight. I got up one morning and there was no belly fat anymore. That little pudge of fat that I always woke up to in the morning was gone, just like that. So, daily walking in any environment, indoors, on a treadmill, or yes, even outside in morning sunlight, is going to allow you to burn belly fat long term. Now let's talk about the last claim that makes up his overall walking secret. And he says, and let me quote him on this, make sure I get this right: daily step count is what ultimately moves the needle. Dr. Mike Diamond here, he quotes a very interesting study that I've actually never come across in all of my research around daily walking. He quotes a study that was conducted around several obese Japanese participants. And each of these obese Japanese participants were subjected to a protocol of daily walking. I think each of them started to walk at least 10,000 steps a day, or even more in some cases. And then by the end of the study, each of these obese Japanese participants not only lost belly fat, but they also experienced significant reductions in their visceral fat. Obviously, that visceral fat ain't going to go to zero, but it probably went down into smack dab in the middle of the ideal athletic range. From 0 to 6, they probably went all the way down to 3, provided that they were walking for months on end, in addition to pairing that with a calorie deficit, which we'll get into. So daily step count is what ultimately is going to move the needle. And this is why I constantly preach this on my channel. You guys need to constantly update, constantly improve the amount that you guys are walking. You can't stay fixated on the same step count week after week, month after month, year after year. It's one of the main reasons why I progressively overloaded my step minimum, as I call it, from 10K steps to 22K steps to 25K steps to now over 35,000 steps. And it sure as hell didn't happen overnight. I've been at this since 2023. So from 2023 to now, almost end of 2026, I've basically gone up by over 25,000 steps. I agree 100% with what Dr. Mike Diamonds is saying. He's encouraging everyone to move more, spend less time being sedentary, and just move, right? Movement in general, regardless of how much you're walking, right? Because eventually you're going to get into the habit of increasing those steps over time. Movement is going to make you less sedentary and thus decrease your risk of chronic diseases like metabolic syndrome. And then also, walking consistently is going to allow you to stay in that calorie deficit long enough for that belly fat to finally burn away. So all of those people who are losing belly fat are not only just daily walking, but they're progressively overloading. They're increasing their activity level. And while they're increasing their activity level, they're also doing two additional things. Number one, they're tracking what they're eating. They're eating less, right? They're controlling their fork. They're tracking their calories. They're tracking their macros. And they're also lifting, right? They're doing weight-bearing exercises. They're doing weight training. Whether that's in the gym, whether it's at home. Heck, it could even be calisthenics. The point is they're putting some sort of resistance on their muscles. And the more muscle you have, the easier it is for your body to prioritize burning fat over muscle. And also, especially if you're in your very first calorie deficit, you can make a lot of newbie gains when it comes to muscle. So you can essentially be burning fat and building muscle simultaneously. In fact, I'm doing something of that sort right now, where I'm basically gaining muscle weekly, but also at the same time I'm burning fat. And that's evidenced by the fact that I'm getting lower readings progressively on my body fat caliper tests that I'm now measuring every single day, and also the waist circumference. So agree 100% that daily step count is what's going to ultimately move the needle in our continuous battle and crusade against belly fat and body fat in general. But you need to also keep in mind that you have to get into a calorie deficit, and you only have to do this once in life, right? Get in a calorie deficit, stay in that calorie deficit, eat below your maintenance calories as long as it takes, or as long as it is needed for you to burn off that lower abdominal fat, that last layer of fat, which could just be a few pounds. That's going to be the last pudge of fat to completely disappear off your body. And you'll make it a lot more easier on yourself if you're also regular in the gym, just 3 times a week. That's something that I wish Dr. Mike Diamonds would have harped on a little bit more at the end of this video. In fact, his thumbnail actually just says no gym, just walk. I don't agree with that. I think you need to do all 3 simultaneously. You need to be lifting weights, progressively overloading in the gym. You need to be in a calorie deficit. Stay at the exact same calories throughout the deficit. Do not slash your calories or you will lose muscle. And that calorie deficit is ultimately going to take a hell of a lot longer to achieve for you to melt off all of that belly fat. And then also progressively overload on your step count, because if you don't believe me, believe a board certified physician like Dr. Mike Diamonds, right? Daily step count is what is ultimately going to move the needle when it comes to burning off lower belly fat. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Like, comment, and subscribe for more daily walk and talks. And until next time, just walk, baby.